Howdy, boys and girls, and welcome back to week 11 of the Carla and Crappy Show. Carla, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm a little out of sorts this week because Ohio State has a bye week, the second one of the season, coming up on Saturday, and yet this possibly could be the biggest weekend of Ohio State's football season. And I see that because of just some sort of a matchups that we have here going late in the season that could have a lot of bearing on Ohio State's shot at getting to the national championship game. Which at this point is actually looking a little bit rough. Ohio State, even with the win streak, is stuck in fourth place, and without some help, getting to the title game is going to be a really difficult thing to accomplish. And I guess maybe we should start with there are a couple Thursday night games, but we have Oklahoma visiting Baylor, and Baylor is one of the teams I'm watching. Baylor is at number 6, and I think they have a shot possibly at jumping Ohio State should they continue to win and win as they have been winning. Carla, are the Baylor Bears going to jump over my Buckeyes?
That's a great question. And honestly, if they win out, I think it'll be really interesting to see how the human voters end up ranking Baylor, because the one disadvantage that Baylor has, or advantage depending on who you ask, is the fact that they don't have a Big 12 championship game to go to.
Right.
So that is going to hurt their strength of schedule a little bit, but they close their season with Texas, which if everything kind of falls out, that potentially, depending on who beats whom and the whole bit, that could potentially be a de facto Big 12 title game. Who would have thought that? We were all thinking that it was going to be Bedlam that would be the Big 12 title game. This game, that Texas-Baylor game, could be the Big 12 title game. So their offensive numbers are ridiculous. I mean, not that Ohio State's aren't, but they're the number one scoring team, and I mean they're putting up. I looked this up and I couldn't believe it, and I had to check 2 other sources to make sure that it was actually true. 63.9 points per game. Really?
Yes, I saw the same number.
And I mean, that just blows my mind. And it's just, and the crazy thing about it is that Baylor's defense actually is pretty good too. And they're overall number 11 in the country. So that is the Big 12 stronger than the Big 10. That's the debate that's going to happen this year. And what hurts your Buckeyes is the fact that Northwestern keeps losing.
Yes.
And that hurts a lot. So if Baylor wins this game convincingly, which they could, depending on which Oklahoma team decides to show up. Although I will say, that Oklahoma is the toughest defense that Baylor will have faced. They're actually ranked higher defensively. They're ranked number 10. But they lost to Texas, so it's kind of up in the air. I think Baylor needs to win this game convincingly, and then beat Oklahoma State, because they're yet to play them too. Beat Oklahoma State relatively convincingly to jump Ohio State, but who knows, really?
Okay, I'm Baylor. Obviously, we're going to talk about Oregon, Florida State, and Alabama as well as we go through this show. Baylor's position is different in that their schedule, the strength of their schedule, is sort of backloaded. Their season sort of starts this weekend.
This week, right?
They haven't. They have rolled up the video game numbers, but they've done it against a lot of cupcakes. And in the conference games that they've played so far, have been with the Big 12's bottom tier. You mentioned that they have Oklahoma State. They also have Texas Tech. The TCU is not the TCU of a couple years ago, but they're one of the. You put them in the top half of the Big 12, and then finish with Texas, and God only knows what's going to happen with that one.
Yeah.
If a team has, if there's a team ranked below Ohio State right now that has an opportunity to jump the Buckeyes, it is Baylor because of the way they close out their season. So I am looking for. I don't know if you're going to make a prediction on this game. I'm definitely picking the Sooners to win this by 70 points. I think is what I was expecting to happen. Kind of like that, yes.
I think Baylor wins. I think it's a closer game. I think we learn who Baylor really is in this game, and I think that could potentially open some doors for later in the season for, say, an Oklahoma State to come up and surprise them.
As I look at the schedule, I think this is the best shot that I have to pin a loss on Baylor. So yeah, I'm definitely pulling for the Sooners. The other game that has, I think, the best potential to help me out personally, because it is all about me, is also on Thursday night. Great stuff coming up on Thursday. We have number 3 Oregon visiting number 5 Stanford. This has been a monster game in the Pac, whatever it is, for the last several years for obvious reasons, and it will be again. Oregon, I haven't seen them play much. I've seen lots of highlights, and as we talked before, I was especially skeptical about what the Ducks would be able to do with Chip Kelly leaving for the NFL, and I was flat wrong about that. They have not put up like Baylor-esque video game numbers, but the offense has been that good, and the defense, as an aside, is pretty good as well. I once again, if I'm looking for help to come from this weekend, I am looking for Stanford to pull out an ungodly defensive effort to beat the Ducks at home. Any chance of me getting help in this fashion, Carla? Do you think?
Well, it's an interesting. Well, first, an off the side comment here about, is this potentially the best Thursday night of college football ever? I think it might be.
Yeah.
These two games is just kind of it's ridiculous, and they're going to overlap just a little bit, so that'll make your TV viewing have your thumb ready for Thursday night. Because there's like an hour and a half between these games. But anyhow, Stanford can win this game. They can, because the Stanford defense has had Mariota's number for the last however many years Mariota's been behind center. For whatever reason, the Stanford defense just baffles him. The difference heading into this game is the fact that Mariota is having a Heisman-worthy season, and he has yet to throw an interception, which is slightly remarkable. Well, not slightly remarkable. It is remarkable this late into the season.
Freaking ridiculous is what it is.
Yeah,
freaking
it
ridiculous.
Is. And Stanford offensively, not that much this year. They're if you look at the numbers, they're ranked number 80 offensively.
Yeah.
And they're going up, and like you said, Oregon's pretty good defensively. It all essentially is going to come down to the fact is, can Mariota finally kind of break through this wall that the Stanford defense has presented him mentally to win this game? And Stanford's playing at home, so you've got the crowd and you've got the win last year. Stanford could pull this off. I'm not going to pick it. I still think Oregon wins the game.
I'm totally picking it that way.
You're totally picking it, of course, naturally. But yeah, this one, I see this as a fourth quarter. I don't see this as a blowout. I see this as a battle until the fourth quarter, and then I think Oregon finally pulls away a little bit. But this is going to be a good one. And here's the other question: if Stanford wins this game, does that really help you? Because with Stanford being ranked one spot in the BCS below Ohio State, if Stanford wins out, do they pass an undefeated Ohio State? That's a great question and a great debate right now.
I dislike that question very much.
Sorry.
Is what I'm going to say. In looking ahead a little bit, Oregon mentioned Baylor has a pretty strong schedule from this point forward. Oregon's is probably next best of the four teams that we're talking about today. They have a game against Utah, which screwed up Stanford's season.
Right.
You have a game against Arizona. You have their rivalry game against Oregon State. And I'm not gonna. I've watched that one enough and seen enough upsets in that one to know that I'm not gonna make that an automatic pick for the Ducks. And then probably UCLA in the conference title game.
Probably.
In terms of finding help for my team, I think it's pretty much got to be this week for someone to beat the Ducks, and then we'll see what happens with Stanford.
Right.
That schedule is strong enough that if Oregon wins out, they're not going to budge from one of those top spots. So that one's got to happen on Thursday. Go Tree, okay? Help me out here. We also have number 2 Florida State. They are visiting Wake Forest this weekend. They're interesting in that they have almost nothing left on the schedule.
Right.
Some of this is no fault of their own because you look at the schedule in August and you think, well, that the final game of the regular season against Florida is going to be a big one, and this year, no, it's not. And they would still have an ACC championship game. But as far as I wonder about the possibility of what happens with Florida in a style point sense. They have Wake Forest, they have Syracuse, they have Idaho. If they have off Saturdays against one or two of those teams, and assuming Ohio State continues to play as it has been the last couple of weeks, I wonder about the possibility of, and maybe it's not Ohio State, but maybe another team, maybe Oregon. Maybe there's some movement around there that would be possible if Florida State has wins but doesn't look good doing it. What is that? Am I reaching here? Do you think that's a possibility?
No, I think it's definitely a possibility, and they actually discussed this on Sunday night when the BCS. Kirk Herbstreit had some really great comments about this whole situation, in the fact that, like you said, Florida State's got nobody left, and if Oregon wins out, if everybody ends up undefeated, Alabama, Oregon, and Florida State, Alabama and Oregon will likely be 1 and 2 because of the strength of schedule with Oregon. So you can't bank on Florida State. So then that begs the question, like you said, against Wake, they're a 35-point favorite on the road. Do they have to win by 40? You know, but and that's seriously the question for Ohio or for Florida State fans is how the style points. How big does the margin need to be against these lesser teams? The other thing is, and the ultimate irony in this, and again I'm stealing this from Herbstreit, is Florida State fans actually have to root for Florida right now. They have to.
It's true.
Because they need Florida to be better than a 500 team when they play them at the end of the regular season. So in like the cruelest irony ever, you got to have Noles fans rooting for Gators because they need Florida to be good. It's the last decent team on their schedule.
As much as I enjoyed watching Michigan State just crush Michigan at in East Lansing last Saturday, you think about that and you think, well, okay, maybe Michigan losing that badly is not going to be such a good thing. Right.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that. Like, as an Ohio State fan, are you actually rooting for Michigan to beat Nebraska this weekend? I mean, do you have to? But then the debate is, okay, so, but if Nebraska holds on and wins the division, is it better to play Michigan and Nebraska in back-to-back weeks as opposed to playing Michigan twice for your strength of schedule? Like, it's just round and round and round we go in the Big Ten right now. It's slightly ridiculous. But I think Florida State's got to cover. They have to cover in this game to keep that margin over Oregon, and eventually they're going to get past anyway if Oregon wins.
And you would assume the scenarios would be the same against Syracuse and against Idaho. They're the big point spreads and some pressure to make sure that they live up to those expectations.
Yeah, it'll be no pressure at all for the young freshmen.
Okay, good Deacons. We finish up with Saturday's marquee game. And this, just from a fan standpoint, actually has a promise. You and I have joked a lot about LSU Alabama games of the past when you're watching paint dry and teams scoring safeties and it's a 5-3 at the end of the fourth quarter. This one actually has potential to be an entertaining game. It also is probably, given that Alabama's remaining schedule is Mississippi State, Chattanooga, before they get to Auburn in the SEC title game. This is probably my best shot to pin a loss on Alabama. And frankly, I don't have my hopes up very high here. It's going to take a loss for Alabama to leave the number one spot. And even if they do, unless it's against Chattanooga, they're not going to drop far enough that it's going to help me out at all. But still, go Tigers, I guess. Well, can Alabama do anything significantly badly enough here that they're going to get out of they're going to leave the number one spot?
Not, I mean, if they're undefeated, no. They're significantly ahead as they're securely is number one, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be. They probably have the best win right now on their resume. of any of the undefeateds with that win over Texas A&M. But that all being said, this is the toughest defense that Alabama will have faced so far this year, because the Texas A&M defense is bad, and they had to come back. I mean, that was a nail biter game that came down all the way to the end there. Yeah. So this is really the first chance that we have to see Alabama against a legitimate defense. And LSU is capable of shutting that defense down, or shutting that offense down. It's just kind of a matter of whether or not the LSU offense will be able to work against the Alabama defense. I mean, that's obvious. That's what's keeping Alabama so far ahead as the number one team, because they're the number one overall defense in the country. They've allowed less than 10 points per game.
Yes.
And so that's really where this comes down. I find it slightly remarkable that everyone's just kind of already given this game to Alabama.
It's true. Yeah.
Everybody's just kind of like, okay, yeah, Alabama's going to beat LSU, and the big game is against Auburn. I don't think you can overlook this game. Yes, Alabama's playing at home. That's big. Yes, I think they're going to win this game, but I don't think this is going to be an easy win. I think this is going to be a very uncomfortable evening if you're a Crimson Tide fan. Until late in the game, when they'll probably pull it together and it'll go in the win column. But I would not overlook this game, and I'm slightly stunned by the fact that this is not getting more attention on the national radar. So I think you're in for a long evening there, Tide fans. But and like you said, I do think this is probably the best chance for Alabama to have a loss, especially if Missouri keeps winning out in the SEC East.
Right.
I think the other best shot would be if either South Carolina or Georgia ended up in the SEC title game against them. I think last year Georgia proved that they could play, and I think something very similar could happen this year. I don't think Missouri can do it, but I think probably either Georgia or South Carolina could. But right now, that's not shaping out. Right now, Missouri's got the stranglehold. So, yeah, this is it. This is kind of it for the Crimson Tide. Although Tigers fans will probably hate me for that. That's the Auburn Tigers, not the LSU Tigers. That's I just don't think that defensively Auburn has the manpower to slow down the Alabama offense. And I think the Alabama offense is too good, or defense is too good.
Yes.
But yeah, I think this is your best shot.
Okay, go Tigers this week and in 3 weeks hence when Auburn has that other opportunity as well. And then of course we're left with Ohio State's possibilities. As I mentioned before, by this weekend, and we finish on the road at Illinois, at home against Indiana, in Ann Arbor, and then you would have to, a reasonable person would assume that Ohio State would be playing in the Big Ten title game. And at this point, I'm especially after watching Michigan State and Michigan last week, I have to assume that the opponent in the conference championship game would be the Spartans. And this is a possibility that I'm curious about. If Michigan State is able to kind of continue the role that it's been on, I see no reason to suspect that their defense is going to fall off anymore. But their offense has improved, and you got to see a little bit of that against the Wolverines on Saturday. They are at Nebraska, at Northwestern, and finish with Minnesota at home. The Nebraska game, yes, tough. Northwestern, if you'd asked me a month ago, I would say tough game, but now probably not.
Right.
Minnesota, doubtful. But if they made a big jump in the polls this week, and I could see them kind of scooching up slowly a little bit. If they, again with the style points thing, if they continue to win as they did against Michigan in the rivalry game, then you have to assume that you face them in the Big Ten championship game, get a win there.
Right.
That will help.
It will. There's another game that's happening this week that actually, again, is off the radar, but will help the Big Ten if they can pull off the win, is Wisconsin BYU.
Yes.
That's a game that's kind of one of those strange games at the beginning of the year that you kind of circle and go, huh? But now it actually could play. I mean, they're both 6-2 teams. BYU is a strong out-of-conference opponent, and a convincing win by Wisconsin in that game would significantly help the strength of schedule in the Big Ten. At least make it a little bit more comparable to, say, an ACC. So yeah, I think everybody's a Badger fan this weekend.
Absolutely, and Wisconsin has played really well in the last month or so, and that is a game that they could, and I might even say should win. Although I did not look up lines or particulars in that one, but
I didn't look up lines either. The only thing that you really need to know is the fact that Gary Anderson is the head coach at Wisconsin now, and he used to be the head coach at Utah State, so he knows BYU.
Right.
Thanks,
That's
David.
Right.
I stole that from David. Sorry, he told me that last night.
That's
but it dawned on, that's a great point. And Utah State had some success against BYU. Now, true, they've changed some schemes and the whole bit, but it'll be interesting to see how that game plays out.
Okay. So to recap, go Oklahoma Sooners, go Stanford Cardinal, go Wake Forest Demon Deacons, go LSU Tigers, and go Badgers on Wisconsin. We'll take whatever help we can get. Carla, thank you very much for. I feel a little better, I guess. This has helped some.
I'm hoping. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that two of your teams win this weekend, just to blow the whole thing up, because that's what makes it fun. I mean,
yes,
that's really what we live for this time of year. I think Oklahoma's got the best out of any of those teams to win. I think Oklahoma's got the best shot. And Stanford. I think those are the two that we really need to watch. So yeah, Thursday night, get your popcorn ready.
I'll take it. Carla, thank you, and thank you guys for watching us. We will be back on the Carla and Crappy Show in 1 week. See you then.
Bye.